The backbone parent gives kids the opportunity to make choices, decisions, and mistakes that are age appropriate and ability appropriate. Hold them accountable and allow them to experience the consequences for the choices they did make, unless, of course, any of those consequences would be life-threatening, morally threatening, or unhealthy. I mean, you do intervene if it's life-threatening. But it starts with something very simple: red pajama, blue pajama. If a child can make those kinds of decisions and shows up with red bottoms, blue top, and notice that's not life-threatening, it may be irritating, but it's not life-threatening, it says to that child that I can make my own decisions. If you allow them then, for instance, the way we, instead of praising them, thank them. Like, thank you for walking the dog. He's been inside all day. Look how happy he is to be outside. Thank you for watering that plant. It was so wilted. Now it's standing up by itself. Thank you for sharing that toy with the new kid. He's been so happy about being included. Thank you for sitting with that young girl at lunch. You see, we praise kids so much we don't thank them enough, but a backbone parent and a backbone educator strokes a deed, not the kid, is very specific to the deed, and lets the kid know what his or her actions did for another person, a dog, or a plant, which says to that kid, you know what, I can stand up for myself and for others. So it's those simple things, the stuff of everyday life, that give kids lifelong lessons without a lot of trendy, technique-y kinds of things. So you encourage them, you give them compliments, stroking their deeds, you get excited about their excitement, you give them good, solid instruction on how to be a decent, caring human being by reading stories to them, by modeling, and by expecting them and holding them accountable for when they are mean and cruel, expecting them to be kind. It's in us to care. So it's nurturing that is already within us. And then constructive criticism, to say to a kid, that's not right. When two girls decide that they can make up a game only two can play because they don't want the other girl to play with them because she played with the girl the day before. Now, parents could say, well, there's nothing wrong with making up a game only two can play, and they're right. But it's not right if your intent is to ostracize another child. You see, intent matters in our behavior. So to give them those kinds of messages. And then discipline as opposed to punishment. Brick wall families are very good at punishment. And it's my way or the highway, and I take things away from you, and I ground you for something that has nothing to do with staying home. A jellyfish family is very arbitrary. Sometimes they punish them, sometimes they let them get away with something. Backbone parents, very consistent in discipline. If they make a mistake, they have to own it, fix it, learn from it, and move on. If they create mischief, that you show them what they've done wrong, give them ownership of the problem, give them ways to solve it, leave their dignity intact. And if they create mayhem, and I consider any form of bullying mayhem because the intent is to hurt somebody and put them outside that circle of caring, then I believe we have to resort to the restorative justice, restitution, resolution, and reconciliation. In other words, they have to own and fix what they did. They spread an ugly rumor on the internet. They have to do their best to call that back as best they can. They can't totally fix it, but they have to make the attempt. Figure out how they're going to keep it from happening again. And I don't want to hear, well, I won't ever call him that name again. Well, that's good. That's what you won't do. Tell me what you will do. And this is where our wisdom as adults will come in. We help them. And then the last piece of restorative justice is to heal the kid you harmed. When they're ready, I don't believe in conflict resolution for bullying. It doesn't work. The bullies come out ahead on that one. But when the targeted kid feels safe, and we've said to them, I hear you, I'm here for you, I believe you, you're not in this alone, it's not your fault, it's the bully's issue. There are things you can do, and you empower the targeted kid, and there are people you can tell, I'm safe to tell, and I'll make sure there'll be no retaliation. If we do that, and that targeted kid is comfortable sitting down with the kid who bullied them, the bully then says, I did call you a gross name. I spread this ugly rumor. This is what I've done to try to fix those best I can. And this is how I'm going to keep it from happening again. And actually, mom and dad are helping me because I won't be on the internet for a while. Mm-hmm. You go on. This is how I'll behave. And the last part, healing, they might say, you know, we locked you out of the chat room. I'd like to invite you in and promise you nobody on my watch will lock you out. Or I'd like you to join us at the lunch table because we ostracize you and I'd like to welcome you. Now, the targeted kid might say, gee, I'd love to come. But they might not. They might stay. What Steve Seskin said so beautifully in the song Don't Laugh at Me, he said, I'm not asking you to be my friend, but is it too much to ask? Don't laugh at me. Don't call me names. Don't take your pleasure from my pain. I want to know I can walk down the hallway and not be called a gross name. I want to know I can sit in class and not be tripped. I want to know that I can get online and not be locked out. That's what I need. Do you see how different that is than conflict resolution? It humbles the bully and empowers the targeted kid and puts them in a position of balance as opposed to imbalance, which is what bullying is partly about.
So let me ask you this then. What advice would you give to the parents of a child who is being bullied?
Let me give you some things I wouldn't do. First of all, don't minimize, rationalize, or explain it away. Oh, boys will be boys. Girls just want to be mean as part of growing up. Don't do that. Don't rush in to solve it. You want the bully to act, the bystander, any able to let it happen. It'll only make it worse. Don't tell the kid to avoid or ignore. The bullies will find them. And you can't ignore. You'll think about it and it'll beat you up inside. And don't tell the kid to fight back. It's not a fight. Defend yourself? Absolutely. But bullies are cowards. They're not ignorant. They had this imbalance of power to start with. And there must be somebody to tell. So what do you do with the targeted kid when they've finally had the courage to tell you? It often takes a lot of courage to tell someone that they've been targeted. We say, kid, I hear you. I'm here for you. I believe you. You're not in this alone. Bullies try to isolate the kid and make them feel like they're a loner and a loser. We have to counteract that. The next thing I want to say, it's not your fault. Yes, the child may be weird, dorky, odd, strange, have ADHD, Asperger's, social cues. And do we work on those issues? Yes, but nothing ever justifies pain. The next thing I want to say to them is there are things you can do. I want to empower that targeted kid. I want them to learn to roll their shoulders around and down, stand strong, come back. Since verbal bullying is the most common, boys use equally well, I want them to be able to come back with good assertive lines like, that was me. I don't need this. I'm out of here. Older kids, that comment was beneath both of us. And get out of there. To stand tall, though, and say it in an assertive voice. Don't be passive. Don't be aggressive. There also must be somebody they can tell. That's safe to tell. We have to let kids know that if they tell us, we will do everything in our power, number one, to keep them safe, number two, to keep any witness safe, and number three, hold the bully accountable for his or her behavior.
Finally, Barbara, I wanted to ask you, because I'm quite curious, you are now a grandmother, or have been for a little bit. How has your philosophies of parenting evolved, changed, improved, been impacted by becoming a grandmother and having, this perspective through a whole different lens?
Oh, I find it very interesting that my kids were embarrassed when I wrote It's Worth It. They were teenagers. And now my two daughters who have our grandchildren are reading the book and their friends. But also talking to me, probably the biggest lesson I've learned is that my job was to be the best parent I could be. And I made lots of mistakes, and I did them my children. You have the opportunity to improve on what we as parents did. And I get the opportunity to watch my children do that and be better parenting, because we grow as our children grow in wisdom and look back and say, I wish I hadn't done that. I've also asked my kids, what do you wish I hadn't done to you or with you? And they're very frank and tell me, and I say, I promise you, I'll never do that to our grandkid. So it's a process of growing, and none of us have arrived. And as a grandparent, I recognize that even more, but it's so delightful. And we had bumps raising our kids. There, no kid is perfect. Kids have free will and peer pressure. And we weren't always there in the way that now I'd like to be there for my grandkids. But not beating yourself up, but saying, you know what? We have a second opportunity here with grandkids. And the next day is the second opportunity with any of our kids that we can say, well, I do that. Let's try this again. But I say to a parent, if you're saying that every day, whoa, I blew that, get help. I think one of the healthiest things, brick wall parents say it's the kid's problem. Leaker says, what problem? Backbone parent says, we need help. And one of the most healthy things we can do for one another is to help one another be the best parents we can be.
Absolutely. Barbara, thank you so much for your time and your perspective.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.